Now, this video is not to show you how to keep from being recognized as an American or pass as a local, because you know what? That is not going to happen. The purpose of this video is to show you how to keep from being that American. And I think you know what I mean by that, right? Because there are some people who can be very embarrassing to all of us who consider ourselves to be American. And by the way, that includes anyone from the Western Hemisphere. I don't care whether you come from Chile or Canada. In Europe, we are all Americans, so don't even try to explain any further than that or reason. And you know what? They're technically correct. So don't worry about being mistaken for being a local. They will tell it from 50 paces off. They can tell it by the way that you dress. They can especially tell it from your shoes, from the way that you walk, the way that you carry yourself. Just don't even think about it. Don't worry. You'll be recognized as an American. Just don't be that American. And those of us from Kansas City, don't even think about saying, yeah, well, I'm from Kansas City, Missouri. No, if you're from Kansas City, listen to me, in Europe, you're from Kansas. Don't worry about the city. Don't worry about the state. Just say, I'm from Kansas City, and they will look at you and go, oh, you're from Kansas. Well, that's great. Don't take it any further than that. You'll be frustrated. They will be frustrated. European languages many times use the word city as in Kansas City in a little different sense. And by the way, we tend to do the same thing in reverse when we generalize about Europeans. Well, all Europeans are like this or that. No, they're not. And we get that confused. We think that people from Scotland or England are Europeans, and some people would be offended because you would think that. So don't even worry about it. You just don't want to be one of those Americans. So how does this work? I'm going to give you some tips here, some pointers on how to keep from being that American. And I'll post some articles here beside the video, some posts on the internet. Some of them are hilarious. Some of them are semi-serious, but hey, this is one of these times we just need to have fun, all right? And all you got to do is get on and Google. It's a follow-up to some of the things that I'm going to post. It can keep you laughing all day, seriously. So here's some basic pointers. Some of them I've mentioned before, some I haven't. Putting them all together here for your convenience. Number one, above all, be flexible. Things are different. That's just it. They're different, not necessarily better or worse. This is one of the basic lessons that we need to come home with from this trip. Just different. Some things are bad, some things are not, but everything can be different, and it doesn't necessarily mean bad or better. It just means different. So don't have any unreasonable expectations. In fact, it's best not to have many expectations at all. Take what comes, roll with the punches, and learn. It'll be fun. At most basic levels, people are people, all right? It's hard sometimes for you to understand why Europeans see all of us as being Americans, and they don't understand the difference between Chile and Canada, whatever, why they can't understand that there's a river that runs through Kansas City. We do the same thing in reverse. And sometimes after a couple of days, I see people seem to think that they've got it all figured out, like, oh, the French people are like this, the Dutch people are like, well, maybe a few of the handful that you have had contact with are like that, but don't think that everybody is like that, because people are people. And while there are some general commonalities from one culture to another, just keep in mind that those generalities are just that. And remember, in both cities, Paris and Amsterdam, half of the people that you see on the street are not going to be French or Dutch. They're going to be immigrants, or they may be visitors just like you. So kind of keep that in mind before you start making wild judgment statements. Watch how Europeans, for the most part, carry themselves. How you'll see so many people who carry themselves with a bit of dignity. They walk erect, even when wearing grungy clothes. Maybe that's all they have. They sometimes can manage to pull it off with a great deal of style, taking pride in the way that they dress and walk, and do so with confidence. And you would do well to follow suit during our time in Europe. Here's one thing that is a dead giveaway for being from America: the way that we use big adjectives. Everything is awesome. Everything is amazing. And we love everything. I love French fries. And they're like, you love French fries? You love peanut butter? it's hard for them to grasp that. They tend to be much more understated than we are, and they think it is hilarious the way that we use big adjectives for everything. To many people who live in either one of these countries that we're going to visit, for them, the only thing in life to be awesome, a word that maybe they would use once or twice in a lifetime, like if a mountain fell into the sea, or if heaven opened and God Himself spoke in an audible voice, that would be awesome. But nothing else really would qualify. So when you're in Europe, just remember that people are going to be smiling and laughing behind your back, sometimes to your face, if you're one of those people that uses words like awesome and amazing every other word. Now, here's the other biggie. I've mentioned this before. Let me mention it again. Watch your volume level. No, really, this is an issue. And it's a very serious issue sometimes when you're on a tram or you're on a train car. Sometimes you might have a conductor come and actually call you out, and watch the volume level if that's a tendency for you. And also, don't think that you have to smile and acknowledge strangers on the street or in the metro. I know I've mentioned this before. Not only does it call attention to yourself, just like a loud volume of your voice, that's okay. They're going to think that you're one of that type of Americans, but the greatest danger has to do with security. It makes you stand out, and it makes you a better target for pickpockets or petty thieves. I just had a guy today that I had lunch with say, first time he went to Europe, he had some people come up to him. He learned later they were gypsies, and they wanted to help him carry his bag or do this or that. And they were just so friendly and so nice. The next thing that he knew is that they had stolen his cell phone. Now, just understand this. Europeans are not accustomed to coming up to people in the street, talking to them, and asking them for something or asking to do something for them. No, really, they most of them would not do that. There's an occasional exception, but just be careful with that, because when you go around the street and you're, hey, how are you doing? Good morning to everybody that you've never seen before and never will again, people probably are going to think that there's something mentally wrong with you. I'm dead serious about that. Here's another thing that is very important in France. Learn some French. Yeah, just a few phrases, a couple of words. French people tend to be much more formal in the way that they speak. Americans tend to be on a first name basis after 30 seconds of knowing someone. That's not the case in many countries of Europe. Now, the Dutch are some exceptions to that. They tend to be much more informal in that sense. But the French are very formal. And if you walk into a shop, if you walk into a place to buy something or just to look around, it is considered a requirement to look at the shop owner, the person behind the counter, and to say, bonjour, madame, bonjour, monsieur, bonsoir, good evening. That is considered to be just standard operating courtesy. And not to have that type of formality is considered rude, crude, and socially unacceptable. You don't just walk up to a counter and say, hey, let me see that over there. You're going to be that American. Bonjour. Bonjour, madame. Bonjour, monsieur. Bonsoir. And to say, please, s'il vous plaît. Thank you, merci. Just a few little words like that. Please, thank you, good day, good evening. Not so hard. Just learn to do it. Even with a horrible accent, makes no difference. It will get you much better service. Might even get you a smile once in a while. It does work. Now, in Amsterdam, almost everybody speaks very good English. In Dutch schools, you have to learn to speak good English. You have to learn to speak good French. And then you have to choose either between Spanish or German, so that by the time a child gets through basic education in Holland, that child is speaking fluently at least three languages, in addition to, of course, their native Dutch. Now, Dutch is a very hard language to learn. It's spoken by 20 million people, mostly in the Netherlands, but Dutch is also spoken in half of Belgium. It's called Flemish there. That area used to be called Flanders years ago. There are significant Dutch populations in France that have spoken Dutch for centuries. It's also the language of the Dutch Antilles, Suriname, in South America, also closely related to Afrikaans in South Africa. If you speak Afrikaans and grew up in South Africa, you can get by just fine in the Netherlands. And so don't worry about having to learn any Dutch words, although little words like please and thank you, alsjeblieft, please, or thank you, here you go. Dank u wel is a way to say thank you. Bedankt is a more informal way to say that. All of those type of things, just a little courtesy is greatly appreciated. And while you're communicating well, learn to speak softly. Just ratchet it down a little bit, like we've been saying, the volume level and all of that. Speak softly, look into the eyes. You don't have to speak slowly, you don't have to play like they're retarded, but just speak clearly. Try to avoid slang, try to avoid contractions like don't, can't, won't, shouldn't. Those are very hard words to learn when English is not your native language. A warm smile is appreciated, but not over the top. And don't take it personally if the person speaking to you seems a bit direct and cold. First of all, remember, they're speaking a second language. And even though they may speak it well, the nuances of culture and tone of voice and whatnot are sometimes lost on them. They don't know how to communicate that, even though they speak good English. And Dutch people especially tend to be very direct. And it's quite possible you would walk up to the counter and ask for something, and they'd look at you directly and say, it is not possible. They don't mean to be rude. That's just, it's not possible. And that's just all it is. So don't take that personally. It's just the way that it is communicated by a person who speaks English as a second language. So here's the basic rule of all: relax. Don't get uptight about anything. It's going to work out, and we're going to have a great time, and we're going to learn a lot too. All right? I'll see you on the next video.